But there's a lot of people shaking their head in the SEC after this past weekend. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, it was a wild weekend of upsets in the SEC this weekend. Pretty much the games of significance. The only one, maybe two, I guess there were two games of significance in the SEC that didn't create upsets. I don't think anybody expected Mississippi State to upset Missouri. But, dude, it was a wild weekend. Florida beat Ole Miss, a top 10 Ole Miss team. Auburn beat number 15 Texas A&M, and Oklahoma obviously beat number 7 Alabama. Where do you want to start?
We've got to start with Florida and Ole Miss. Shout out to me. Pat myself on the back. Because what I did, John, is I said that Florida was going to go in there and the swamp, and they were going to get them boys. And they did. Jackson Dart gave that game away. Like, that last possession, he literally threw roughly 3 interceptions, with one of them being called back. He was basically giving the ball away, and you could tell he was pretty rattled. He was not handling the swamp very well. That pressure was starting to come down him like 1,000 pounds of weight on his body. And when he threw that first interception, I was like, all right, Florida, get a first down in the game. They didn't. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not too concerned. He's going to throw another pick. He threw another pick. They called the penalty. Got the ball one more time, and he ended up throwing another one. It's just the balls were just so erratic. But I got to give it to Florida, man. Ever since they gave Billy Napier that vote of confidence, this team has looked like a completely different team. They've got fight, grit. DJ Lagway is going to be something special. I don't care what nobody says. He's going to be something. They're putting it together, and they're going to be a problem next season. I'm glad they're not on our schedule yet.
Right. I was thinking the exact same thing. DJ Lagway, 10 of 17 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. They'll create a big play on you. They're not afraid to take some shots, and they run the ball really, really well. But yeah, the way that Jackson Dart just kind of went into quicksand. I mean, it was the replacement's quicksand game. Can he bounce back from that with the Egg Bowl coming up? That'll be fascinating. Texas A&M went and had an opportunity to kind of reassert themselves as a potential playoff contender and fell flat against the Auburn Tigers. Just a game that went nuts, went to overtime and was in an extended overtime. Auburn had a lead going into the fourth quarter, but Texas A&M rallied to tie the game. But Peyton Thornton threw for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. Another freshman performance from Cam Coleman with 7 catches, 128 yards and 2 touchdowns. Credit to Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers for pulling off that big upset.
I have not been more disappointed in the team in my life in seeing that Texas A&M had themselves a little bit of a lead in the game, and they still let Auburn go down and score. This game should have been done. They should not have let Auburn come back and get that field goal to tie the game up. They should not have let them go into overtime. I'm disappointed in what Texas A&M did. Now they got Texas next week. This coming week. They got Texas in a couple of days. Hopefully the hate is still big enough to where they decide at home that they're not going to let them embarrass them at their crib. But the fact that they actually lost that game, man, it's got to be embarrassing. I mean, yeah, sure, Jordan area is so cursed. Depends on who it is. We own the state of Alabama right now, so It ain't us, right? Yeah. We'll get to go to Tuscaloosa next year, and then Auburn can come over here to Gaylord, Oklahoma Memorial Stadium and learn a little something about cursed stadiums too. But I was really hoping that Texas A&M would have closed this out. I wanted them to go into that game against Texas as, one of the teams with, only one loss in conference, and then show up, show out, knock them out of the SEC championship game, go against Georgia and let Georgia just go ahead and win it because we know Georgia's going to end up winning it because of that. But they didn't do it.
Yep.
But luckily for them, they still have an opportunity to play. The winner of their game goes against Georgia because Georgia's already clinched. They're in because of the wins and the tiebreaker stuff. Georgia's in. I just need them to upset Texas for
Yeah,
me. That's all I
it'll
want.
be great for a bounce back this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention. I apologize, Auburn fans, for saying you had no chance against Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You proved me wrong. I hope all the players listened to my doubt and took that as inspiration. I could provide that inspiration for you because I was very adamant that Auburn had no chance in this game, and they proved me wrong. So I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again, I'm sure. But
yeah.
the other game of significance here, LSU held on against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt tried to come back and make something of this game, but picked up the win to move to 7-4 on the season. They kind of needed that because they'd been really floundering in the second half of the year. So you're going to have two teams in Oklahoma and LSU going into this game that are coming off of wins.
Yeah. LSU needed that. I mean, the game they took the lead early and it just kind of held on to it from then on. Vanderbilt tried to make a push, but they weren't able to. Diego Pavia couldn't get his game going like he likes with all the running and moving around like he did. So LSU played a solid defense. Then they ran the ball well. Josh Williams was their top back. He got himself he had 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touch and a reception. So they got everything they needed out of it. Caden Durham, he had another game too. You know, we all know Caden Durham. He's from Oklahoma, lived in Duncanville where he graduated, ended up at LSU, in which we were hoping we would have gotten him with Xavier Robinson. That would have been him, Taylor Tatum, and Xavier Robinson. That would have been a ridiculous running back class, but I digress.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to go up against them.
Yeah. And then Texas takes care of business against Kentucky. There wasn't really much drama in this game. You know, Kentucky tried to make it a little bit interesting at times, but Texas just too good, too talented, playing good football. Listen, I don't want to give credit to a rival, but they're playing good ball. Yeah. Now, what's it going to look like this week when they go to College Station and they play a team that has a bit of a pulse and has something to play for? And then potentially the week after when they have to play Georgia, we'll see. I'm willing to say they're a good team. Are they a national title contender? I don't know that, because the game of significance that they've played this year against Georgia, they got beat by 2 touchdowns. And again, it's not their fault that the rest of their schedule has been cheeks, that Michigan's been bad, that Oklahoma was bad when we played them. This Oklahoma team that played on Saturday night against that Texas team maybe looks a little bit different.
Dramatic.
But that's not the way things work.
Nope.
We were terrible at the time we played Texas. Texas is good. I don't know that they're great. I don't know that they're a national title contender, but they just continue to take care of business and beat everybody on their schedule except for Georgia.
Yeah. And that's what we were hoping to be at that point. But again, you know, attrition kicks your butt. Can't stay healthy. It's kind of hard to win games. But no, Texas went out there and they made a statement out of Kentucky. Kentucky's a very physical team. It's that one of those teams that teams don't like playing against because they beat you up throughout the game. And for the most part, that game had a little bit of a beating up in there. There was a little bit of physicality throughout that game. So it wasn't just as simple as some would try to make it. Kentucky made them work for it up until some time into the second quarter. But yeah, they got the benefit of a lot of health, a lot of experience going into it. Now, the question is after playing a game like this against a team like Kentucky, like I said, they're very physical, and teams don't like playing against Kentucky because of how physical they are. Taking that game into College Station, that body, that team, question is going to be how healthy do they feel going into that game, and right now Quinn's hurt. There's a very good chance that he's not going to play, mess his ankle up. There's questions there.
I did see a tweet that basically said if Quinn's not available to play in this game or against Georgia in the SEC title game, they should be knocked out of the playoff. I think it was a reference to Florida State and no Jordan Travis. But that's going to be fascinating. But hey, listen, Arch is good. Arch is a good player, and I think he's more than capable to make some plays for them. But this next week of SEC action is going to be fantastic. You got the Iron Bowl, you've got the Egg Bowl. Friday is the Egg Bowl, and then you got Georgia Tech also on Friday, and then obviously Oklahoma LSU. Then you got Tennessee Vandy, which I don't think anybody expected that to be much of a game, but with the way those two teams play offense, it could be a really intriguing game. You got South Carolina, Clemson, Louisville, Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, and the Iron Bowl, and you got Arkansas, Missouri, which has become a little bit of a rivalry. Florida, Florida State. Florida's going to trounce the Seminoles, and then Texas, Texas A&M as well on the weekend. It's going to be a really, really fun weekend of SEC football. Any game in particular you're most looking forward to?
I'm ready to see that Egg Bowl as well as the renewed rivalry between Texas and Texas A&M. Yeah. It's been a long time since they played, so I'm pretty excited to see that. I'm a little disappointed the Egg Bowl's not on Thanksgiving, though.
I'm just a little disappointed that Texas A&M and Oklahoma and LSU are at the same time.
Yes, like why would you do that to us?
You're gonna have the computer open on one or the phone open on another, and the tablets going. There's gonna be so much football action. You're gonna have to have all the devices going this Saturday in SEC ball. And that just is SEC. There's going to be a lot of great games going on across the country as well. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube as well. Follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. And the show is at Locked On Sooners on all your social media profiles, platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you like to do social media. We are there. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner.